going on, Only Playbook fans? We are back, and we have a full house in what feels like forever. Everybody is here because fantasy football season is less than a month away. I think we need to set our draft date officially and set our draft order. So I'm super excited about how I'm going to get creative and try to do that this year and not just do the same stuff every year. But man, we have so much to talk about. It's going to be a big episode. We are talking about the best, most important position in all of football, the quarterbacks. We're going to rank the quarterbacks in fantasy football. I got Shashot, married man in the house. Shovit, still not married man in the house. Start with you. How are you doing, man?
Oh, I am doing great, dude. Doing so good. As I was making the episode on my end, I was just like smiling the whole time, like, hey, I'm going to know this stuff other people aren't going to know. Hey, I'm going to know this stuff other people aren't going to know. So I'm already scheming. We out here getting our little list ready. This is going to be a fun season. I've never seen a quarterback class for fantasy purposes this deep ever in my life.
Shovit, you echo those sentiments?
Yeah, I echo those sentiments, but I want to go back to what you said about the order. I feel like we need to like crowdsource this. Like people need to I wish we had a way to figure out the order being remote, have like some, I don't know. I've heard some crazy ideas like Spotify playlists where you all pick a song and whatever song comes on first is like that song that you pick, your number one and so forth. But I'm curious what other people think. So send us your suggestions.
Yeah. What about a one-on-one tennis tournament?
I mean, that would be cool, but we'd have to book flights to meet up. So that might be a little.
It would be super elaborate, but kind of worth it. Maybe we plan something elaborate next year so that we can start like doing cool things. But
sounds good. Yeah, 2 more years. 2 more years for elaboration on my end.
Yeah. If you guys have any creative ideas that I can do from just the butt and the seat of my chair at home, then I'm more than happy to do it. But it's exciting. It's absolutely exciting. Like you said, Shashot, the biggest thing I noticed doing the rankings is, dude, there's so many like generational amazing quarterbacks that we just grew up with that don't even make my list. And I'm just like, man, this feels so weird. It feels so different. Kind of felt wrong, but I think that the tides are turning and the young generation's kind of taking over this old generation. So I'm excited to talk about it. I'm going to kick us off with 15 through 11. Then I'm going to kick it to you, Shashot, and then we'll go to Shovit. Let's kick it off. Number 15 for me is Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. Number 15, I mean, no rushing upside. He is who he is, right? Doesn't offer anything from a rushing standpoint, but he's got 2 of the fastest receivers in the NFL, one of the best receivers in the NFL, maybe of all time, one of the most productive receivers, a guy that basically can't be guarded, right? So because of that reason, I just think big playability is always going to be there for that offense. So whether, he's throwing for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, or he has his dud weeks, he's going to throw for enough yards, and Tyreek Hill's going to catch enough passes that's going to make Tua a relevant fantasy quarterback. So he is 15th, which again, most leagues, 12, 14, if you're getting crazy. So right now he's the outside looking in terms of a quarterback you'd even start or draft on a week-to-week basis. Number 14, old reliable Jared Goff. Home road splits are something that I care deeply about. So if you're drafting Jared Goff, you're one of the guys waiting. He's going to be a guy that you can probably undoubtedly play at home. And then on the road, you're going to maybe have to look for streaming options or more favorable matchups. Offense is the same. Nothing's really changed for them. Will Jameson Williams break out and officially give Goff that deep threat that's going to allow him to open up his offense even more? Time will tell, but that's why he remains 14th on my list and not anywhere higher because, again, no rushing upside. Number 13, Caleb Williams, rookie quarterback from the Chicago Bears. I wanted to put this guy higher, but I felt like I was going to be just way too, I don't know. I feel like a homer and I feel biased when I talk about Caleb, and he doesn't even play for my favorite team. So it's a little weird, but he's number 13 for me. The sky's the limit for this guy. If he plays to his potential, he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL in fantasy football. He can pass, he can run. He's got 3 incredible weapons. It's just rookie quarterbacks and the Chicago Bears. So if we want to play that narrative and be like, okay, the Bears don't ever produce good quarterbacks, then we can. But situationally, this is completely different. Different quarterback, different team, different weapons. So I think it's a different time in the land of Chicago, and Caleb Williams is ascending. Number 12, Brock Purdy. Pending Brandon Ayuk getting traded. I don't know where that stands still. Obviously, they didn't reach a deal, and he has officially, again, like the 5th time this offseason, said, I want to be traded. So 49ers continue to say they're not going to trade him, but if you're not going to get a deal done, I think trade is inevitable. So if he gets traded, obviously we talk about Ricky Pearsall getting drafted. He could step in, but I just don't think he's going to produce to the level of Ayuk in year 1. So that obviously is going to drop Purdy a little bit. But as it stands right now, he is number 12 on my top 12 quarterbacks. And number 11, Jordan Love coming in at number 11. 8 games of incredibleness. First half of the season was very mediocre. Have defenses adjusted? Is this going to be the year where defenses adjust to him and he's got to adjust back? Or is this truly the third superstar quarterback that the Green Bay Packers have had just fall right into their lap? Time will tell. But from a fantasy standpoint, he was incredibly efficient. And I think we need to stop mistaking the weapons that he has for a bunch of nobodies. But in fact, they're all actually somebody. So I think that offense is truly going to make use of every single skill position player that they have. My biggest knock on that side is losing Aaron Jones, catching passes out of the backfield, easy completions, easy yards. Might not have that this year, so we will see. That's why Jordan Love is number 11. So 15 through 11, I have Tua, Goff, Williams, Purdy, and Jordan Love. Shashot, what about you?
All right, solid list there, man. A lot of surprises. I got a couple of those too. Some of them didn't even make my list, but I'll start with number 15. I have Deshaun Watson here. Honestly, there are X factor players you'll see later on, and then there's players that are going to win you leagues. And if my potential for this man, well, let me just tell you my secret real quick. There are certain players that when you draft them onto your team, they're considered sleepers because not many people are looking at them, right? Then there's players that are sleepers that have proven something already in the past. And then there are players that have become elite in the past that were not playing for non-injury reasons, and now apparently there's an injury, right? I've watched this game long enough to know what real injuries are and when the situational reasons people get benched. This is number 15 pick I'm talking about. So there's not much to be said about Deshaun Watson. We've seen what he can do when he's healthy. We've seen what happened last year. I think last year is a huge anomaly. Getting 15th overall, you can wait so long this year. I'll give you some, players to think about that didn't even make the list later, but this guy barely makes my list. And the upside is there versus some of these other players we're talking about. We're hoping for potential that we think is going to happen. And now we're talking about a player that was 1 or 2 or 3 at any given time during his prime. And not much has changed besides he got into a better team with better protection and just overall better play around him. So again, not in the top 12, but a player that makes the cut for really, really hopeful reasons. Number 14, I have Caleb Williams for everything else Sweekar mentioned before. 2 things make for a really good fantasy season rookie quarterback that makes your team better. And that is, number 1, players that are studs, right? You go for studs. You have to be a stud. You're not going to come out of college and kill it in the NFL if you're not a stud. Caleb Williams passes that eye test to be potentially able to do this. And he got drafted number 1 overall. So there's more backing that situation up. And number 2, you got to be in a team as a rookie, either in a team that's losing or in close games. And we don't see the Chicago Bears here dominating opponents left and right. Yeah, they may take some other teams, with their pants down because of how good their defense has improved. But I expect Caleb Williams to be either trailing behind or keeping up with most of these teams. And that equals a lot of throwing and a lot of fantasy points. And with a young player like this, with a brand new arm ready to throw all over the field, you got to take your chances because even if he has 2 picks, that's maybe 6 touchdowns coming your way. So really, really good pick this late in the draft. Number 13, somebody that just misses my cut is Jordan Love. Again, we've seen what he can do, right? He's probably the most unique player in this whole situation because he can run. We've seen him run. We've seen him pass. We've seen him make quick passes. We've seen him make deep passes. He can literally do everything. This is Aaron Rodgers, but a little bit faster and probably a little bit dumber. But we will see, right? It's a super sleeper here. Not everybody's going to go be into this draft saying, I'm getting Jordan Love and nobody knows about this. There are a few people and they have their reasons, but not most people aren't doing that. So again, number 13, this isn't even starting in a top 12 league, but I have high hopes and suspicions that he will overtake some of these players that I'm going to talk about because of the versatility we've already seen. We've seen what they do with Wicks. We've seen Christian Watson's abilities that are probably never going to be what people hope they're going to be, but it's there. And there's multiple other players that are able to supply into what a quarterback needs, and he has everything. So again, proven, ready to play, ready to make fantasy points happen. Number 12, I got Tua at this spot. The same reason Sweekar mentioned, but a little bit higher for the other reasons I'm going to mention. And, having Hill and Waddle, it's just when you're an accurate quarterback, your best friend is a fast wide receiver because it creates separation. You don't have to worry about throwing behind the receiver. You just loft it in front. You just touch passes here, touch passes there. And that's what Tua has done and succeeded doing this. And he was in the top 3, top 4 before some of those major injuries happened in fantasy production, not in overall quarterback standing, but he can make it happen. And with another year in the belt with this head coach and with the same players, improved running back core, it's just, there's no way this is going to be a downhill type of trend. It's going to be better, but he's 12 because there's just so many good players above him. Joe Burrow is the last one on my 11 to 15 list. Again, not many people expected. Well, I'm making it sound like people are waiting for my drafts, but not many people expect Joe Burrow to be this low, right? You're like, Joe Burrow, what are you talking about? It's just Joe Burrow. No, man. No, we've seen what has happened. We've seen what he's able to do when he's healthy, but he's not even confident enough to say he's healthy. There was an interview, I think on the 12th of July, like 4 days ago, 5 days ago, whatever that is, 6 days ago. They asked him, like, are you ready to play? And he's like, it's tough to say. Like, the fuck? It's July. It's July, man. I need to know that my quarterback's ready to play. It's tough to say. It's not even like, oh, I'm going to be waiting. We'll see what happens. It's tough to say. That means there's things that are happening that he's not comfortable with. And we don't know what percentage he's going to be playing at. And we've seen what happens when he's not at 100%. So, being a mobile or not a mobile quarterback, hanging on to the pocket a little bit more, he's less likely to be mobile because he's hurt so much now. So again, I don't like how anything that I'm saying is reflecting towards Joe Burrow because I'm really hesitant on drafting him. Even if he falls to me at the 11th best quarterback, I'm skipping him. I'm going to Caleb Williams and just praying Deshaun Watson goes off. Whatever it is, I just can't do it. I can't do it.
Nice. Yeah, those are solid. I have similar players. I don't have Caleb Williams. He did not make my top 15 list at all. But I'll go through them and then we can talk about what you guys think. But number 15, I've got Tua Tagovailoa. I think he's in one of the best offenses in Miami. The things that they're doing right now is second to none with the motions, and I think that with, like you guys mentioned, with the receivers that they have, Jalen Waddle, and Cheetah, I think that the Miami Dolphins will be productive, and Tua will be a great quarterback, despite the fact that they do run the ball often as well. But they'll figure out a way to balance that. And then next, I have number 14. I have Brock Purdy. Similar sentiment as far as Tua goes. Just a great offense, right? With CMC, with Debo. Ayuk might not be the rookie Pearsall. He's a guy that can get you 2 touchdowns and 250 yards every single game, right? And that's a solid floor to have with Brock Purdy, a guy that's 14th pick. You're talking about a QB2 in a 10-man league or 12-man league, right? So I think Brock Purdy also has a solid floor as well. Number 13, I have Jared Goff. Jared Goff finished number 7 last year. Same offense, one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. There's really nothing to stop this offense with, Amon-Ra St. Brown, their rushing attack. They're a balanced team, and Jared Goff is going to be the beneficiary of that. I can see him, even though, I have him down as 13 just because I think there are other quarterbacks that will step up that weren't injured last year. But I think that he has a potential to be top 10, finish top 10 as well. Number 12, this is where I have my first rookie quarterback and the only rookie quarterback this year, and that's Jayden Daniels. And I think Jayden Daniels, which with his rushing ability, I think gives me a higher upside than Caleb Williams does. And I also like the weapons that the Washington Commanders have, Terry McLaurin and Dotson as well. So I think that with this new offensive coordinator in Cliff Kingsbury, and given the fact that the Commanders are also going to be playing from behind, I like his rushing upside a little bit more than Caleb Williams. I've seen some throws that Caleb Williams makes during training camp, and I think it was Keenan Allen's like, what the heck are you doing, bro? Like, throw me the fly, right? Like, so I'm a little bit more reserved on Caleb Williams, and I feel like Jayden Daniels is going to be the better rookie quarterback this year. That's the guy I would go out and get. And then number 11, I've got Jordan Love. Jordan Love finished top 5 last year. He's got all the weapons that he could possibly need in, again, a great offense in the Green Bay Packers. So he's proven that he can be that quarterback, guy that had like back-to-back 3 touchdown games last year, and proved that he was capable in the playoffs as well. So I think Jordan Love is, he's the future for the Green Bay Packers, and he's certainly a guy that you can say, okay, I'm confident in drafting this year.
So Shishot and I have Caleb Williams, which you don't have. Shishot had Joe Burrow in his 11 through 15, which neither of us mentioned Joe Burrow. And then Shishot, you mentioned Deshaun Watson, which neither of us have, which I'm going to go out on a limb and say neither of us have in the top 10, right? So those seem like the biggest differences. But other than that, it seems like pretty similar in terms of where these quarterbacks are going to be, our thought process behind them, and what we expect them to do. So I don't have much to debate there. I'm going to go through my 10 through 6 here. Number 10, I have Jayden Daniels. You just talked about it, Shovit. I do like Jayden Daniels from a fantasy perspective more than Caleb Williams. Although let's not put stock into Caleb Williams' one pass in this random video that you saw, because
you don't want to do that.
There's that. I mean, what does that ultimately prove to you? Absolutely nothing, right? It just helps create this narrative in your head that's going to deflect from what's actually happening in front of you. So I would try to get that out of your brain as fast as you can. But from a fantasy perspective, I'm with you. Jayden Daniels offers way more rushing upside, but I would disagree that his weapons are not as good as Caleb Williams, right? So Caleb Williams has superior weapons. Caleb Williams has a superior team overall to Jayden Daniels right now. But I do like the thought process that he'll be playing from behind. He uses his legs a lot. He's got similar speed, not the same rushing style that Lamar Jackson has. He's more upright, but he's got similar speed. So again, what do we love in fantasy? We love running quarterbacks. Rookie quarterback running for his life pretty much half the game because they're going to be playing from behind. Sign me up. So I think despite turnovers, despite everything that's going to come with a rookie quarterback, I just think from a fantasy perspective, he has the ability to be a top 10 quarterback his rookie year. Number 9, this is where Joe Burrow comes in. Similar stuff, man. I hate being the guy that talks about a player and depicts like injury concerns, but these are serious injury concerns. Like you said, this is a guy that is as confident and has the moxie of somebody that you would want leading your franchise to not be confident about if he's going to be ready to play week 1. That is a massive red flag. And aside from that, though, situation is insane. He's got the same damn team. He's got basically a better Joe Mixon and Zach Moss. So upgrade there. And offensive line, pretty much the same, if not a little bit better, because they're a little bit healthier. So weeks 5 through 10 last week, Joe Burrow was quarterback 4. So it's not to say that a non-running quarterback can't succeed, because this is a guy that's capable of throwing 350 and 3 every single week with the weapons that he has. But like you said, how bad is that calf injury? How much is it going to limit his mobility, not even to run, but just to like step back, drop back, sidestep, evade, rush, still to look downfield? I have to believe that that's going to come into play. So that's why he is 9 for me. Number 8, Dak Prescott, who becomes for me the biggest enigma on this list for some reason. Cowboys not doing a ton in the offseason. A lot of cloudiness around them. Dak not getting the extension. CeeDee Lamb is still there, so that's why their offense took the next step last year. And Dak, during weeks 3 through 12, was like quarterback 1. And in my league, I picked him up off waiver. So he wasn't even a guy that was getting drafted last year. So similar sentiment in the sense that nothing from the offense has changed. So if they're going to use CeeDee Lamb the way they used him last year, Dak should absolutely flourish again. But it's just hard for me to draft Dak right now, simply because he still had, like, the Cowboys seem like they're coming back to earth a little bit with the way things are structured from an offensive standpoint. They didn't sign that number 3 receiver that they really wanted. They brought back Zeke, the old man, and instead of going out and getting another younger body. So I'm a little flustered with how I feel about this offense, but as much as I may not like Dak as the quarterback himself, but from a fantasy perspective, there's no denying that he's incredibly productive. So he's number 8 for me. Number 7, CJ Stroud, sophomore year, added Stephon Diggs. Obviously, that offense should be even better. But similarly, when you get into the top 6, top 5, all these guys are masters with their legs. And CJ, you have yet to show me that you're going to be a master with your legs, which doesn't seem to matter. They're still going to win games because his arm is incredible. But when you have limitations with your legs, obviously some of these guys ahead of you, quite frankly, are just going to produce more fantasy-wise. So no knock on CJ. I think he's going to have a phenomenal year. You add Stephon Diggs to an already incredible wide receiver room. Sky's the limit for him. And then number 6, maybe a surprise to y'all. Number 6 for me is Kyler Murray, coming in right outside the top 5. We are forgetting this guy is, 10 games in, potential MVP before he got hurt, and the team the complete team took a shit. So now you have Marvin Harrison Jr., who is already being drafted late first round, early second round of fantasy football drafts. That should tell you everything you need to know. That guy is going to produce. And why is he going to produce? Because of Kyler Murray. Trey McBride, my number 1 tight end this year. Spoiler alert. Those 2 guys are going to make this offense. I love Trey Benson in the addition there, who's going to spell James Conner, who's getting older. This offense is going to click. Kyler's going to be the focal point. And again, what do I love about Kyler? The man knows how to use his legs. So hopefully the injuries are in the past. Again, not predicting injuries outside of somebody who's clearly injured in Joe Burrow. That's why Kyler Murray is number 6.
Nice. I really like a lot of those assessments for why they belong in those positions. I got some surprising ones within those same players, but a little bit higher, a little bit lower. I have Kirk Cousins at number 10. We beat this one to death, but it's like a similar to Purdy situation. But I think this team is actually better from a personnel standpoint on offense. disregarding the offensive line. But, we've seen what Kirk can do with a pretty shitty offensive line. And we've seen him what he can do from a really good offensive line. It's very similar because the ball comes out really fast. And now that we have established a player to take most of the damage, which is the CMC role Robinson's going to be taking, it's a similar offense, just more freedom. And I think, he hovers around that 11-12 range pretty much throughout his career. So I'm just going to bump him up a little bit points to 10. And I wouldn't be surprised if it went up to 7, depending on how well this team gels. That is yet to be seen. So that is the number one question for why we are at 10.
Real quick, before you continue, as a doctor, do you have basically next to zero concerns about his age and coming off an Achilles injury?
No, because he was never a power passer. You know what I mean? Like, it's always been about the flick of the wrist and the right placements. And I think that's not going to change. I think, from a wiser person perspective, he probably got better at like adjusting to those throws over time. He's not going to be able to bomb it 60 yards down the field, but he was never really that guy from the beginning. So I'm not really too concerned. I thought it would maybe a big deal, but how I've seen him move around the pocket, it looks very similar to before injury days, but there is a high risk of re-injury. So Achilles always can get hurt again. So that's that. Number 9, I got Dak Prescott. Like Sweetcar mentioned, all the same things. It's a copy and paste. Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott, they are who they are. And it depends on what the team is around them for them to get to the next level. Dak Prescott, not much has changed, but he does have one of the best wide receivers in the league in that area. So it's easy for him. His job isn't that hard. Again, people that can get open, quarterbacks love that shit. And not many people get more open than CD Lamb. So similar team, more pass heavy because they're finally getting away from that, big pound and ground run along with the pass. They've kind of unleashed that. And now it's basically all pass. Like they've kind of and then this is another year of learning that same offense pretty much with the pass first mentality. So I assume things are going to get better, right? Things have to get a little bit better. I'm going to put him at 9 because there's just too many better players ahead of him. Kyler Murray makes my number 8, right? Marvin Harrison. I always loved Kyler Murray even before the injury days, all that stuff. I played with the Cardinals online when I played Madden because I loved having Kyler Murray available. There's a reason for that. He moves around the pocket. He moves around outside as if he's still in the pocket. The way he moves is different than anybody else in the whole entire league. There's no other quarterback that scrambles like Kyler Murray does. He doesn't lose acceleration. It's like he hits that acceleration mode and it's just continued acceleration all throughout, no matter what direction. That is a huge plus. That's a huge plus. If you're in a good offense, you'll see many plays happen. If you're in a bad offense, nothing will happen. But if you're on an up-and-coming offense with a lot of weapons, you become a sleeper quarterback. So Marvin Harrison Jr., McBride, that combo already could easily be top 10. That combo easily can be top 10. One guy gets open. One guy has proven himself to be probably, dare I say it, the best tight end in that position. So, there's the options are there. The team got better. There's still veteran presence in the backfield. They're not going to miss blocks. Kyler Murray will be safe. He's back. He's back, and there's really really good reason for him to be this high up on the list. And they're going to be losing a lot of games, right? They're going to be coming from behind, a lot of fourth quarter, 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, even if he throws for nothing in the first 3 quarters. So, yeah, it's a really safe pick. Number 7, Patrick Mahomes. How far we have fallen. You might be wondering, what the fuck are you doing, bro? What the fuck are you doing? Well, I think he does good. I think he has a really good year. I think he has one of his best years. There's just too many players before him whose teams are just next level, right? And I'm saying that about a Chiefs player on a Chiefs team, but we've seen what his ceiling is. I hate to say that, but his ceiling is like 50 touchdowns, which is a lot, but there's not much running. He's not going to give you 700 yards rushing and 10 touchdowns, right? Like that's what separates Patrick Mahomes from Josh Allen. Like they're very similar in the way they play, but Josh Allen is aggressive with the running. Patrick Mahomes isn't. And that's what separates that big of a distance in the standings. He's number 7 for that reason. There's other players that are learning Patrick Mahomes' methods and doing it while running. So again, I hate to say it, they're going to win games. They may make it to the Super Bowl again, but for fantasy purposes, I want players other than Patrick Mahomes. And I think we've all learned that lesson over the last couple of years when we all had a little dabble at Patrick Mahomes. I did not, but we've seen when people got him and nobody's happy. Nobody's happy that they drafted Patrick Mahomes. And that should tell you everything you need to know. And my last pick for this round is pick number 6, Jalen Hurts, right? Wow. How far? Oh my God. But he's number 1 and number 2 in many people's eyes. We are forgetting what's really important. What is the most important thing in football? It's not the quarterback. Center. It's the offensive line. It's the offensive line. Why do you think, he regressed to 7.2 yards per attempt after Steichen left, right? For another player that'll be mentioned later.
Offense looked like shit. The offense looked like shit last year.
Right. For a long time. It was like, what are you doing? How can you not, you know what I mean? So without the tush push, if you take away the push touchdowns, he was quarterback 16 last year. Quarterback 16 without the tush push. And I'm sure he would have gotten a lot of that, but wouldn't have been QB2, wouldn't have been QB3. So, and there's no Kelsey, superstar, blocker, whatever you want to call him. Like, he was the best at what he did. He's no longer there. How can you be so sure? And guess what? If the second or the third best running back in the league is coming to play running back, right? So you got to give him touches. You're telling me Saquon's not going to get goal line touches? Like, what the fuck? You're not going to pay him that much money to not get him touches. So you're losing the blocker that made all this happen. You're getting a better player that runs the ball a little bit better than you can in those areas. There's no way. You can't replicate that. There's too many better players that run the ball more effectively for long-term, for bigger amounts of yards than this. So again, rest of my case, Jalen Hurts, love this guy, love his attitude, but he can't be my top 5 fantasy quarterback.
Yeah, that's a big shocker to me. I didn't see Jalen Hurts coming, but I do want to mention something about Kirk Cousins. I think that's an honorable mention for me. I think that the Falcons last year had 3,600 passing yards with the quarterbacks that they had. Kirk Cousins is certainly an upgrade this year. And with the better offense, I think he can definitely get you over 4,000 yards by the end of the year, 25 touchdowns, limit the interceptions, then Kirk Cousins becomes a valid top 10 quarterback. All right. So for me, number 10, I have Justin Herbert. He finished 17th last year. But I think that if he plays all 4 games that he didn't play because of injury, and he just averaged at least 15 points per game, then he's a top 10 quarterback at that point, right? So the knock on Justin Herbert this year is that, Greg Roman's the offensive coordinator. They're going to run the ball often, but this is still a passing league, and your best team on the field is your quarterback. So I think they will do what they can to make sure that Justin Herbert is efficient and can go back to his years in 22, 23, where he was actually a solid quarterback in fantasy. So I think he comes back and has a solid year this year as well, despite running the ball, being a running team.
Who's he going to throw it to? Show it. Who's he going to throw the ball to?
It's a good question. You got Ladd McConkey as your rookie quarterback. Quentin Johnson hopefully makes a step up this year as well.
Bust.
But he's not a bust just quite yet. I think that was there's still time to see if Quentin Johnson could be something in this league. So we shall see. But I think they'll find a way to utilize Justin Herbert. Kyler Murray is number 9. He finished 2nd in 2022. Dual threat quarterback, Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride, just going just repeating the sentiments that you guys had about Kyler Murray. And I also think Michael Wilson is going to be a great receiver this year as well. So I think they have good weapons. Kyler Murray being the fact that the guy that can run the ball, be an accurate passer as well, certainly has top 10 upside this year. Number 8, Dak Prescott. Finished 3rd last year. We always count him out of fantasy, but all he does is produce numbers for fantasy, not playoffs, but he gets you fantasy points. And so given that, even though he only has CD Lamb, they still find ways to air the ball out, had one of the higher passing yards in the NFL last year. I think they will continue to utilize Dak Prescott, and he should finish top 10 this year as well. Just I don't know how he does it, but he just does. Number 7, I have Joe Burrow. I'm not so fearful of the injury because I think that if he plays, there's no reason. If he's healthy on the field, there's no way that Joe Burrow is not finishing top 10. A guy that can he's got the weapons on his team. He can throw the ball. He's the focal point of that. I mean, they're a passing team. So I think that Joe Burrow, certainly if he's playing, that's something to monitor. But I feel like, if he's on the field, again, top 10 finisher, riddled with injuries, but this year it's a different year. Hopefully he can come back and be back.
Real quick.
Self.
I don't know if you guys are aware, but they did get a new offensive coordinator. He was always with the team, but Dan Pitcher, I believe, is the new offensive coordinator. So I don't know how things are going to be from that standpoint. So they could always open up the passing game more. I don't know how that guy's play style is. I got to look into that a little bit deeper, but it is a new offensive coordinator.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like they have like this really great running back either, right? I mean, yeah, you got Zach Moss, and you have Chase Brown, who's kind of maybe up and coming, maybe. But it's not anything proven where you can say, okay, we're just going to not go with what's working. And we're just going to same thing with the Ravens. Todd Monken comes in and you think the Ravens are going to pass the ball more. No, they still passed it 53% or ran the ball 53% of the time. Right. So they're still doing
passing formations.
they'll still do what they know works, and then maybe in the future they might transition to that. So that doesn't worry me too much.
I think Zach Taylor calls the plays. So I think he's going to still call the plays even with this guy taking over as offensive coordinator. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. That's not the part I'm worried about. Just to make that clear, it's the injury that's the most concerning. But yeah.
Number 6, CJ Stroud. A guy that finished 11th last year, but didn't play all the games either. This year has Stephon Diggs. Has Nico Collins, who's a proven receiver, great wide receiver 2 option, and then Tank Dell, who's that deep threat. So CJ Stroud being more comfortable in the offense. He's a great decision maker as well. I think that he does a really good job of reading through progressions. He's just going to be a better quarterback next year. I think that finishing 6th is certainly not outside the realm of possibilities for CJ Stroud. So high upside there as well.
So real quick, I love CJ Stroud as much as the next guy. I don't know why it came as such a shock to me when I looked at his numbers for last year. Have you guys seen what his season numbers were last year? Like when you think about CJ Stroud breaking out, everyone's like, oh my God, he had his insane season. He's going to be one of the next best quarterbacks of all time. He threw 23 touchdowns last year, which seems incredibly low. Does that not?
Yeah, it was a late blooming situation, right?
Yeah.
Like the whole, the wide receivers were getting kind of rotated because of all the injuries and everything. And then things kind of just gelled a little bit late, but that was enough to see like his potential. But I think that was the thing.
Week 9, he had 41 points, 41.8 points. And then, Tank Dell got injured later on as well. That kind of hurt them somewhat. But he was getting, there's definitely a rushing upside with CJ Stroud as well. So what is his rushing numbers? How many touchdowns did he have? Do you have that?
I did not look that up, but I'm assuming not very many.
I would say
3.
5.
He had 3 touchdowns.
3. Okay.
Yep. So yeah, no, I that actually just stuck out to me. I don't know why I assumed like 4,500 yards, 30 touchdowns at least for everybody touting him as like this historic season, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, I agree. I love CJ Stroud. I thought he was awesome, but 23 touchdowns, we're talking about fantasy, right? So we're probably going to need a little more touchdowns than that, CJ. But like you said, second half of the season, maybe he's going to come on starting week 1 because of Stephania. All right, top 5. Number 5, I got Patrick Mahomes. So not that further back from you, Shisho. But yeah, he is number 5 for me. Everything you mentioned. Kelsey, a year older. Rashee Rice just doesn't know how to not be an idiot. And then, Hollywood Brown. We talk about injuries. Here's a guy that actually can't stay healthy. So is he going to stay healthy? Probably not. The stats tell us that statistically he probably won't stay healthy, right? But none of that stops Mahomes from winning games, doing weird things, getting to the playoffs, winning. But what are we talking about? Fantasy. Fantasy-wise, like you said, you hit the nail on the head. We've kind of seen his ceiling in a perfect season, 50 passing touchdowns, right? But in other seasons where it's not perfect, even though they're winning games, fantasy-wise, it's just not quite there because he doesn't run as much as the running quarterbacks. And like they started using Pacheco so much more, which I think Pacheco's usage this year is going to increase even more on top of that. So just all of those situations make Patrick Mahomes from a fantasy perspective, he should not be the top guy that goes. So on this, please don't draft Mahomes again, like in the first, second round or whatever you did. In my dynasty league, somebody took Mahomes 2nd overall, which I thought was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. So please don't do that if you're listening to this podcast. Mahomes, a name, incredible, maybe the best quarterback of all time. Mahomes, a fantasy player in 2024. Not as incredible. Number 4, I have Jalen Hurts. Also, not as high as I would have liked to put him. All of the same things you said, and I echoed. I got nothing more to add. Offense looked like shit. No more Shane Steichen. No more Jason Kelsey. And Saquon Barkley is going to get the football in the red zone. You're naturally going to lose push touches because no Kelsey and because Saquon Barkley, right? That is the reality of the situation. And
Still
think about it this way.
Right?
Yeah, think about it. Still 4. But think about it this way, why he's still 4. I mean, not necessarily why he's still 4, but the way I view Hurts not being 1 or 2 automatically is because Hurts is still mid-20s. He's a quarterback. He should be able to play another decade of football. They signed Saquon Barkley to a 3-year deal. The dude may only have 3 football years left. Why would they not run that mofo to the ground and preserve Hurts, who's still going to be the quarterback beyond Saquon Barkley, unless something catastrophic happens? So I just think naturally they saw the toll that Hurts took when he was pushing the hell out of the football. Yep. And now this year, no more Kelsey. We have another guy that we can just bruise to the ground. Like we can literally kill him figuratively. Like, right. So he's only got.
They basically saw Hurts' thighs and they were like, hey, this is working really well. Do we have any bigger thighs in the league? And they were like, all right, I got a guy for you.
Freaking thigh 1 and thigh 2, bro. Imagine those 4 thighs in the backfield, like during a rushing play. Like insane. So I just naturally think Saquon's going to see the football quite a bit, going to lead to less touches for Hurts. He comes in at number 4. Number 3 for me, man, I wanted to put him number 1. It's Anthony Richardson. He is number 3 for me. There is nothing to dislike about what his fantasy ceiling can look like this year if he plays every game. Like, I just think think about Kobe Bryant. If he's playing a basketball game, you're like, he's guaranteed to score 30 points, right? If he's going to play every single minute, he's going to get his points. It's inevitable. That is Anthony Richardson to the T. Nothing is going to stop this man from scoring fantasy points this year. I am absolutely enamored with him. I would not be surprised if a lot of people take him as the first quarterback off the board. I don't know if I would jump that far. It'd be a massive risk, but it's a risk you're willing to take if you're going to want to win your season. Anthony Richardson, we talked about it. Shane Steichen, he left Jalen Hurts. Now he's with Anthony Richardson. They just drafted A.D. Mitchell with an already good receiving room. They have Jonathan Taylor, one of the best running backs in the league. This offense is ready to explode. Oh, let's not forget the fact that the division that they're in, they're playing defense of the Tennessee Titans, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Houston Texans. Their defense sucks. CJ Stroud's in shootouts all the time. So it's offense. Full steam ahead for Anthony Richardson. Would not shock me if he is quarterback 1 at the end of the season. Number 2, I got Lamar Jackson. Todd Monken, another season under the belt. He's going to get even more comfortable. You talked about it, Shovit. Maybe they didn't throw the football as much. They threw the football and ran the football almost the same once he came. But Lamar Jackson had a career high in passing yards, completion percentage, and yards per attempt. Another season in this offense, I expect that to get even better. And he's not going to forget how to run the football because that is who Lamar Jackson is. He's the biggest. Him and Anthony Richardson are the biggest threat to me to be quarterback 1 this season. And my quarterback 1, the guy I haven't talked yet about, is Josh Allen. Let me just tell you guys, he's my quarterback 1, but my God, have I never been more scared of somebody that I'm ranking as the number 1 quarterback in fantasy football, because he comes with so much fear. They have nobody. They lost all. They have since 2018, they have the most vacated targets of the top 2 options of any quarterback to be in the top 5, let alone this guy's ADP is quarterback 1. In the history of the NFL, no quarterback has been ADP 1 with losing as many vacated targets in Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs the year before. So truly, this is a year where Josh Allen basically has to be like, I have to do everything. Now, that's not going to result in a playoff win, and it's not going to result in making the playoffs even, or maybe they don't go far. But when he has to do everything for that offense, what does that mean? That just means points. Josh Allen runs. Josh Allen passes. Josh Allen passes it to himself, maybe. I don't know. But there's nobody there, so I just truly feel like he has to do everything. Now, couple things that this can come with: risk of injury. It could be a catastrophic fail if Keon Coleman's a massive bust and he's going to have to try to find Curtis Samuel open and Khalil Shakir. Dalton Kincaid is still there, obviously, and Dawson Knox. So there are weapons, but you don't have a go-to guy. You're losing so many targets of guys that have been reliable and consistent and superstars in Stephon Diggs. So it comes with a ton of question marks. But again, the dude just plays football about as fearless as any other quarterback that I've ever seen. And he runs the football as fearless as any quarterback I've ever seen. So that's why, to me, Josh Allen is going to stay as the number 1 quarterback in fantasy football.
Damn, I wanted to run through a wall there. If I had Lamar Jackson on Josh Allen on my team, I would have probably ran through a wall. All right. So number 5, my guy, 2-time MVP, got me 1 trophy last year, Lamar Jackson. He's this low for me. Nothing really needs to be said. Everything's already been said. He's just production god, right? Like, you can make plays on the ground. You can make plays in the air now, and more accurate than ever before. But he has Henry, right? He's got Henry. Henry's not coming in there to play like, oh, let me block for you. That's not happening. He's getting the ball. We're going to be handing off the ball to Henry quite a bit, especially in the red zone. They're probably realizing Lamar Jackson is this many years into his career. We need him to play long-term. They were probably trying him out the first couple of years, but now that he's got 2 MVPs, they can see what he can do with his arm too. They're more like, all right, this is our quarterback for the future. Let's get a solid running back to help him out. So I think Henry comes in, takes away a significant amount of end zone touches. That's really where Lamar Jackson separates himself. That's where Josh Allen separates himself. So we're going to be banking more on big plays, but those can happen, right? When you have Henry and you got a play action formation, you got everybody running towards Henry, and now you got Lamar Jackson running down the side the other way or throwing a deep pass. This team gets better. Lamar Jackson's fantasy points probably take a small hit. That's really where I'm trying to get at. CJ Stroud is number 4 on my list. I do think he's better than what most people think. And small sample size, like we've all talked about, there's not much, but in the 7 games where Nico Collins and Tank Dell played at least 60% of the snaps, Stroud averaged 27.8 fantasy points per game. That puts him right next to Josh Allen. So, and that's without the running game, right? So I think we're seeing a little bit of Mahomes-esque passing style, passing mentality. He knows how to play football. It's not a quarterback that needs this to work, that to work, this to happen. This guy's gotten the keys to the city pretty much. They're like, all right, you can literally do everything. Now do it. We're going to bring you a brand new Lamborghini. His name is Stephon Diggs. Ride him. So I think we're going to see some big progress. I think we're going to get close to 48, 52. Like I'm expecting that type of touchdown production just because he's got everything he needs. And I think I have enough trust to see that happening. So if he falls to me at this range and I'm debating CJ Stroud or Lamar Jackson, that's going to be a tough one for me. I'm not going to beat around the bush there. And Jalen Hurts is going to be there. Patrick Mahomes is going to be there. Kyler Murray is going to be there. But this is why you got to make the decisions. If you truly believe in certain players and certain things falling in place, you got to pull the trigger. Otherwise you're going to be living with regret for the rest of the season. And that's just not me. Jayden Daniels, number 3. Wow. X factor of the year. That's what I'm labeling this situation as. This is literally what everybody saw Anthony Richardson, and we're believing it. But now we're like, Jayden Daniels probably not. Very similar, right? Much more lean. So he has a really big chance of getting hurt. That's the biggest thing here. He's come out and said he wants to exceed Michael Vick and Lamar Jackson's records. Like, what the fuck? Like, you haven't even played a snap, dog. What are you saying? So, but that's been put out there. That's been put out there. So it gets your interest going because you're like, he believes in himself, right? So rule number 1, believe in yourself. You're not waiting for things to happen. He's going to make things happen. Big difference. So it took me everything not to put him at number 2. Honestly, I was like, should this go higher? But no, the biggest thing here is obviously there's 2 players left on here, which you guys can probably assume who they are. But the big difference between those 2 players and this guy is he's thin, he's tiny, he's lean. He's like, there's a lot of things that can go wrong here if he's going to establish himself as a running quarterback, and that's why he's ranked so high for me. So what I'm going to say is enjoy the ride, because this is going to come out slanging, banging, whatever, 14 points on the ground every week. Like, it's going to happen, but there's a huge risk here, and that is the inability to play at an NFL level, getting decked by defensive ends at the NFL level all the time. And I don't know if he can do that, and I don't know if he's smart enough to get out of bounds. I just don't know much to see what the long-term prospect possibilities are. But I do know with this type of skill set and this type of situation, this type of coming from behind every game, and this type of ability to evade the defenders, every single person that plays this role gives you fantasy points. 9 other quarterbacks who've run for 1,000 yards or more in college have been successful in the NFL level from a fantasy perspective in one way or another, but he averages a yard more per carry than all of them, right? So we're seeing something that has never been seen before. As much as we talk about Anthony Richardson and what we haven't seen before, same, but different, right? I think there's more of a passing mindset here rather than a running mindset, which is shocking to me because this guy can run faster than pretty much everybody else. So I think the upside is what we're playing at here, and that is 1 year. I just need you to do good for 1 year. I don't care about your long-term abilities, right? This isn't a dynasty league. So I think I would be willing to take the risk with Jayden Daniels over CJ Stroud, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, because there's guarantees here, and I trust it. Josh Allen comes in at number 2 for me. That's probably the first time I haven't had him in the top 1 in the last 3 years. He's finished QB1 once, QB1 the second year, QB2 the third year, and then QB1 again the fourth year, the last 4 finishes. So, not much needs to be said. He's in a run-heavy offensive coordinator, doesn't give a shit, still finishes offensive as number 1 quarterback year after year. The loss of Diggs is huge, but I think that just creates more passing situations. I think they're going to suck more from that perspective, right? A lot of third downs may not work out. The other team's going to score. We're not going to see the similar Bills just overpowering people because Diggs is a big deal. Like, Diggs is really a big deal. He's top 5 quarterback or wide receiver, and it just goes under the carpet because he's such a diva and like creating hysteria. But his abilities are not to be shooed off. Like, that's a huge miss for Josh Allen. But I think he's skilled enough. He can throw deep enough. He can create his own plays. He can do everything to fill that void to the extent where he still sits in the top 2 in fantasy. He can still run for 600 yards and get you 8 to 10 touchdowns on the ground, which is something that I can't say for anybody else besides. Number 1, Anthony Richardson. Injury risk. Yeah, it's a throwing shoulder, right? So the risk is there. But rehab apparently has been going really well. He's 30 pounds heavier than the average quarterback. Okay. So like we're watching Cam Newton on steroids, just running down the field, running a 4.43, pretty much faster than most defenders outside of a cornerback. And what is he going to do with the cornerback? He's going to eat him alive. So open field, this is next level dangerous. I'm talking about Jayden Daniels being dangerous. Now add 30 pounds to that and make him just run over people, right? So this is an athlete that can change the game forever. So as long as he stays healthy, which I hope for his sake, he takes more slides, doesn't run as often, lets other people do a lot of the work because they're there. They're getting paid. They're some of the best players in the league on his team, and they will take the load off of his shoulders, right? So I think they're going to be smarter this year. Current ADPs rounds 2 to 3 after quarterbacks with much lower ceilings. And I'm talking about placing this guy as number 1 overall. And you just got AD Mitchell. You still have Pittman. You got Downs playing the slot better than a lot of other wide receivers. And Jelani Woods is a big-time target from a tight end perspective because he does things a lot of people don't, and those things need to be considered when you're playing with a dynamic player like Anthony Richardson. So out of all the players that I've mentioned so far, I think 40 points every week, most likely to be Anthony Richardson.
Wow. Solid. Okay, so for me, similar players, but in different spots. Number 5, I've got Patrick Mahomes. I think last year, the Kansas City Chiefs finished second in passing attempts, but Mahomes was only QB 10. So, like you guys mentioned, I don't think that he's that same quarterback that will finish top 3 anymore. Although they do get Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy, and I think that's going to help Patrick Mahomes be that quarterback that likes to throw the ball deep. Because what was happening is you lose a guy in Cheetah, and so you can't throw the ball deep like that. So obviously at that point you have to limit your game to pass the ball, in the mid, like I guess middle of the field. And given that Kelsey's also getting older, I think they might start throwing the ball deep like Patrick Mahomes likes to do. So with that being said, I think Patrick Mahomes has an upside in that sense, but we may not see that until like the later half of the year when they start kind of gelling and Rashee Rice comes back as well. I think there certainly is an upside with Patrick Mahomes, but just not like top 3 like we have been used to in the past. Number 4, I've got Anthony Richardson, and you guys are right to rightfully put him as high as you did. Anthony Richardson in the first 4 games had more points than Josh Allen did, right? But then he got hurt. So I think he has a lot of rushing upside, and that certainly is great. My fear is with the fact that he can't pass the ball, as his accuracy might be an issue. That might not even come into play when it comes to fantasy-wise, but I'm just curious to see how defenses will adjust to the fact that maybe they can just start, play him as QB, contain him and make him throw the ball often. And I wonder if that will hurt Anthony Richardson because last year was just like the first year. They didn't have enough gameplay on him. I know sample size little with 4. Maybe it might hinder his chance of being QB1. Certainly, I think he can be successful and a top 5 finisher, but 1 is a little bit tough for me to digest in that sense. Number 3, I have Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts, you guys are maybe a little bit lower on him. I still think that Jalen Hurts, with the weapons that he has, even with Saquon in the mix, I think Saquon takes definitely is going to take some of that rushing upside that Jalen Hurts brings in. But with the fact that he can still pass the ball, there is still some running that Jalen Hurts will do. He uses his legs as well. So there is still that balanced attack of passing and running the ball with Jalen Hurts. And I think that will be enough for him to finish 3rd in quarterback rankings. And number 2, I've got Lamar Jackson. Guy can do it all. Pass the ball, run the ball. Todd Monken is his offensive coordinator. They'll find the best way to bring the most out of him. Even if they pass the ball more with Lamar Jackson, he's capable of doing that, and he will still run the ball when he needs to evade the pocket. And he's dangerous when it's open field and he has to evade the defender. So I think Lamar Jackson certainly has a low floor as well. And number 1. It's hard for me to not go for a guy that's finished QB2, QB1 in the last 4 years, and 4,000 yards in each of the last 4 seasons. So I feel that Josh Allen has more to prove, and he's worked on his mechanics as well as a quarterback, being able to release the ball quicker. That's something that he's been working on. So I think that the fact that he can always find ways to get touchdowns, whether it's using his arm or using his legs, gives him that massive upside to finish number 1 this year.
Okay, so that's fair. So I think you and I both have Josh Allen as number one. Shishot, you got Anthony Richardson. I'd say the biggest discrepancy here is Jayden Daniels. I have him. Where do I have him? I have him 10. Shove it. Where do you have him?
I have Jayden Daniels at where do I have him? 12.
Damn.
And Shishot has Jayden Daniels as third, right?
Yep.
So that is a massive discrepancy, and obviously the upside is immense. You know, we already I certainly understand that. I think for me, the Commanders, just that offense is kind of a shit show. I still don't buy into Cliff Kingsbury, to be completely honest with you. I felt like he was kind of in over his head, especially obviously with Kyler Murray and everything like that. So he's going to kind of an inferior quarterback. Terry McLaurin's nice. He's great. He's always been there. He's a consistent force. But my the thing that scared me off with Jayden Daniels, a couple things. College, like you said, Shishot, the dude doesn't know how to evade hits. Like he's the massive, like, I just want to take every hit because I can. You can't do that in the NFL because the guys are 6 times your size and way stronger and will kill you. His stature, like you said, you want to talk slender. Randy Moss and him have the exact same build. 6'4", 210 pounds. So think about Randy Moss on the football field. Think about Randy Moss running routes on the football field. Slender as fuck, right? The dude, we were like, if he goes over the middle and he's taking a safety hit, he's probably fucked. And Jayden Daniels has almost the exact same stature. So it's like it's hard for me to take that out of my brain. It also like makes me think of RG3, who's actually a little bit bigger than that still like wanted to run and got hurt. So those are the fears. But, you know, anytime you talk about somebody who's got upside, I just always think about the years where you drafted Michael Vick before everybody else. You did all the crazy things that nobody else wanted to do. And what did that lead to? It led to you winning championships. So if anybody wants to look at me and shove it and be like, oh, they got Jayden Daniels so low. No, you need to listen to why Shishot has Jayden Daniels so high. If there's a player that's worth taking a risk on, I absolutely agree with you that it's him. I was the guy that was too scared to take CMC number one because of injury concerns. So it's going to be hard for me to probably pull the trigger on Jayden Daniels as my QB1 top 5 quarterback. But there's a reason that people that do that end up having tremendous success because you got to risk it for the biscuit is what they say. So I think that's the biggest discrepancy, but I don't disagree with anything you said. I'm always coming with a kind of a fear or reservation from that standpoint, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you can also take this a little bit different way, and you can just not draft a quarterback and just get him before a little bit later, right? This is just like what I value. This is like my list of how I value these players in what order. But doesn't mean that if I'm going no quarterback method, you know, until round 10, that guarantees Jayden Daniels can be available, right? So like, you know, that's like Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins era and range, and there's still Jayden Daniels available, and I ranked him 3rd. Like, you know, that's like an easy grab. So I'm probably going to end up with Jayden Daniels in a lot of leagues unless things change from now till gameplay, which will likely happen because the highlights are going to come out and all this stuff and
preseason and shit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. Yeah, you just because our rankings say 1 doesn't mean you get them 1, like or in the second round. These are like if you're like you said 7th, 8th, 9th round, and one of these top 5 guys are available, you're like, okay, you know, this is probably a good time to go out and get, you know, I don't know, whoever finished 5th. So Patrick Mahomes for me in the 8th round would be like a steal.
Gold.
Yeah. I'm thinking about it just like around the Dak and Burrow range, right? So if we have Dak and Burrow similar in wherever they're going to be, like 6, 7, 8, whatever the case may be, Jayden Daniels is going to be there as well. And Jayden Daniels is offering an upside to his game that those two just don't use as much, right? So if he ends up being the same passer that Joe Burrow and Dak become, then his floor is literally QB 7 through 8. But he's adding this rushing upside that allows his passing to take a massive hit because those rushing yards are going to be so vital. And like you said, the biggest thing in fantasy football that I continue to learn personally is and I think I learned the most that year that you, Shishot, had Jalen Hurts. The dude would go into the 4th quarter with like 3 fantasy points, and Shishot would just be like, I'm chilling, like just not even stressed out. And he would end up with like 25 to 30 points. So all that to say, the Commanders are going to be playing from behind against the Eagles, against the Cowboys, maybe even against the Giants. Who the hell knows? So there's many games where that team is going to be coming from behind, which again, just ultimately means more points for Jayden Daniels. So I love it, man. You got to be the ones. That's what we say. That's the motto of our fantasy league. And putting Jayden Daniels 3rd is literally the definition of being the one.
Eckler. That's another part of all this. It's another Eckler thing, okay? Because we know he's not the same Eckler running the ball, but fourth quarter, they're going to be throwing the ball, and there's not many running backs that do that a little bit better than Eckler. So that's another friend that he has, which is going to be very helpful in the passing game.
That's massive. Definitely massive. Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, that is it, guys. That is the top 15 quarterbacks heading into the 2024 fantasy season. Man, to not mention Aaron Rodgers, to not mention guys like Matthew Stafford, to like just not mention these guys that have been in the league, like Justin Herbert, who me and you didn't even have. Chauvin had him in his top 15. Oh, so much, man. But this is insane. You're not wrong that I'm looking at this list of quarterbacks that are starting in the NFL this year, and it feels so deep from a fantasy perspective. Every year, I preach, don't take your quarterback early. Don't take your quarterback early. And it feels like this every year that continues to get pushed further because there's more quarterbacks coming in that are good. Yep. So man, this year, truly, I want Allen. I had Allen. He's amazing. I want Allen bad, but there's so much value in just waiting and taking one of these guys. It's ridiculous. So don't be the guy that takes a quarterback in the first round. Just don't do it. Please don't do it. Even if it's Anthony Richardson, just don't do it.
I got 3 players I want to name just from in like a tier standpoint, like how good all of them I believe are going to be fantasy relevant, but I think it's situational and depends on either they're playing at home, away, what teams they're playing, but these guys will produce. Okay. Trevor Lawrence is probably gonna have the best year of his career. All right. That's coming. That's about to happen.
He was 16. He was 16 for me.
Right. He didn't make my cut. So he can easily be top 3. Like we're talking like this was supposed to be one of the best players we were going to see in a long time. And now he's reached his full potential, has all the tools and everything. That's a player that goes undrafted in a 15-player situation here. Jared Goff, who has the best offense in the league, probably, right? And now he's playing with the same tools again.
Yeah.
There's too many players. And then
just not sexy in fantasy, but they're all there.
Right. Exactly. And then you have a player that I mentioned a couple of months ago in Will Levis, who is not going to get drafted, who probably his family members probably won't even draft him, but we are going to see production, right? We are going to see production. It may happen week 6, week 7. I don't know, but there will be games where he throws up 30 points, and we're going to see a lot of Josh Allen-esque play style because that's his best possible outcome is playing like Josh Allen, not putting up the numbers like Josh Allen, but you will see hints of Josh Allen types moves. And I think the most likely player to do that with that same size, with that same build is probably Will Levis.
I know this sounds incredibly homerish, but my sleeper is 100% Sam Darnold. I think people are sleeping. Nick Mullins played a game last year and threw for 450 yards. Justin Jefferson had the most receiving yards he had in a single game with Nick Mullins as his quarterback, guys. Nick fucking Mullins. So I don't think people looking on the outside in are just pegging Sam Darnold, the bust, the guy who saw ghosts. Like, oh my God, this is going to be disgusting. He's going to be so bad. Bros, this offense, I don't know. I don't want to keep talking. It's going to sound so homerish, but don't sleep on Sam Darnold. Do not sleep on Sam Darnold. He is going to produce 100%. All right. You guys got anything else? Because it's been like almost an hour.
I've got no homer sentiment. I'm with Russell Wilson and maybe Justin Fields if he plays.
Hey, that's gonna be so Justin nice. Fields, gonna be such a...
If he plays.
Justin Fields getting a running back, wide receiver, tight end designation in fantasy. Watch the hell out. Watch the hell out for that. Some point they start running him. Maybe, dude, they put him in like the Taysom Hill role because Russell Wilson's a quarterback. All of a sudden, you're picking up Justin Fields in fantasy and playing.
Apparently, Cordero Patterson's doing some reps at tight end. He's actually playing the Taysom Hill role.
All this to say, this fantasy season is going to be bonkers. Okay,
it's going to be crazy.
Absolutely bonkers. I can't wait. We are so excited to be back. Those are your top 15 quarterbacks. Next week, we are going to do running backs. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like, hit the subscribe. It helps spread the word about this wonderful podcast that we are part of. If you're listening, you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts at. Socials, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at The Only Playbook. I am Sweetcard. That's my Twitter handle. That is Shashot. That is Shovit. We are The Only Playbook. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Have a fantastic week. We'll see you next week.